Hi, this is Colin from the History Pilgrim. I hope you've been enjoying my videos and I'd be interested to hear your comments. I have another interesting gaming history video. I hope you enjoy. Movie tie-in video games have earned a reputation for being subpar experiences, often met with groans from gamers and critics alike. These video games, usually released alongside their film counterparts, have a long history of disappointing fans. From clunky controls to uninspired gameplay, movie tie-in video games rarely capture the magic of their cinematic counterparts. The most significant factor contributing to the poor quality of movie tie-in games is the strict timeline imposed by their film's release date. Unlike standalone video game titles, which often take years to create, tie-in games must be produced in time for the film's premiere. This rush to meet deadlines often results in very poorly designed games riddled with bugs. For example, the 2011 video game Thor: God of Thunder, released alongside the 2011 Marvel film Thor, was widely criticized for its lackluster graphics, repetitive combat, and technical issues. The developers had little time to redefine the game, leading to a product that felt unfinished. One of the most glaring issues with this game was its uninspired and repetitive level design. Players traversed generic environments which bore little resemblance to the rich, detailed world seen in the movie. Part of why the world was so unimpressive in the game was that the graphics were shockingly outdated for a game released in 2011. Character models were stiff and poorly animated, textures were muddy and lacked detail, and Thor himself, the central protagonist, looked less like a mighty Norse god and more like a blocky, lifeless action figure. Special effects such as Thor's lightning attacks lacked the visual impact and polish needed to make them memorable or exciting. In addition, the voice acting was often flat and unconvincing, which failed to bring any personality to the characters. Movie tie-in games are often constrained by the source material, leaving little room for creativity or innovation. Developers are staked with adhering to the film's plot, characters, and settings, which can limit their ability to create a compelling gameplay experience. Developers were often forced to shoehorn cinematic moments into gameplay, which resulted in awkward, uninspired designs. Take, for instance, Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows Part 1, the video game. This game attempted to turn the film's dark, character-driven story into a third-person shooter complete with cover mechanics and endless waves of enemies. The result was a game that lacked the tone of the source material and left players frustrated and disconnected. By contrast, the adaptation of Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone for PC, while by no means an award-winning game, at least was modestly enjoyable. This PC game, created by the same developer, Electronic Arts, created an open, explorable version of Hogwarts that, while dated by today's standards, had much more polish than the Deathly Hallows game produced by the same studio a decade later. The 2001 PC version featured semi-engaging spell-based dungeons and quests, while the Deathly Hallows game featured repetitive combat fighting off Death Eaters. The game stripped away the enchanting atmosphere which defined the films and replaced it with monotonous combat that felt more like a poorly executed Call of Duty clone than a Harry Potter adventure. Another example of a video game adaptation which fell flat from a popular movie was the Spider-Man video game, based on the Spider-Man movie released in 2002. Despite Spider-Man being one of the most popular superheroes of all time, the video game did not capture any of its excitement or spirit. One of the most crucial aspects of any superhero video game is the ability to accurately and satisfyingly replicate the powers of the hero. In the case of Spider-Man, the idea of swinging through a city, battling villains, and performing acrobatic feats should have been a thrilling experience. However, the game's controls and mechanics made these actions feel clunky and frustrating. Swinging through the streets of NYC as Spider-Man should have been an enjoyable experience. But in the 2002 Spider-Man game, it was anything but. The swinging ability was often rudimentary and difficult to control, with Spider-Man often not catching onto the side of a building, and Spider-Man usually not swinging in the desired direction of the player. The physics of swinging, which should have been one of the most enjoyable mechanics of the game, instead became a source of endless frustration, which made players feel annoyed rather than amused. In the world of video game adaptations, few titles stand out as more emblematic of being a shameless cash grab than the 2005 video game Peter Jackson's King Kong, the official game of the movie. While the game itself received mediocre reviews, the game title has become a subject of jest in the video game community. The game's title seems to call out to the fact that this game is an attempt of making money off a popular movie and nothing more. No discussion of bad movie tie-in games would be complete without mentioning the E.T. the Extraterrestrial video game for the Atari 2600. Infamously blamed for contributing to the video game crash of 1983. This game was rushed through development in a mere 5 weeks to meet holiday deadlines. The result was a confusing, nearly unplayable mess. Players controlled E.T., wandering aimlessly through repetitive screens, falling into pits and struggling with clunky controls. The game was rushed to meet a deadline in time for Christmas, leading to a rushed product with too many units produced. The game's dismal reception led to millions of unsold cartridges being buried in the New Mexico desert. This story is so infamous, it has become a legend in the video game community. These examples are not to say that every single video game based off a popular movie is destined to be terrible. One example of this was the 007 GoldenEye video game, based off the 1995 James Bond movie of the same name. The title, released for the Nintendo 64 in 1997, is frequently cited as one of the best movie tie-in video games ever made. Unlike many other movie-based video games which struggled with poor visuals and gameplay mechanics, GoldenEye succeeded because it blended solid gameplay with the spirit of the movie, beyond merely copying the movie's plot. This video game took core elements from the GoldenEye film, such as sniping action and intrigue, and translated them into gameplay that was both challenging and engaging. Perhaps the best aspect of this game was the way it approached its core mechanics. Rather than simply copying the plot of the film, GoldenEye 007 offered original levels and missions that were inspired by the movie, allowing players to experience the world of the movie in a way that felt engaging. This level of depth and complexity was very unusual for a movie tie-in video game. Perhaps it is because much more time was given to develop the game, which allowed the producers more time and effort to make a decent game. In conclusion, poorly made video games based off of popular movies are a disheartening reminder of what happens when creativity takes a backseat to profit. These games, often rushed to coincide with the release of a film, most often fail to capture the essence of the movie on which it was based, leaving fans with a shallow, unenjoyable experience. For video games to truly honor the stories they adapt, developers must prioritize quality over speed. With the increased demand for hyper-realistic graphics, the gaming community has seen a decrease in these cheap attempts to ride off the success of the films on which they are based. Hopefully, the future of gaming will bring video games based off of popular movie franchises, which brings something new and creative to the gaming world, not games which prioritize the quantity of profits over the quality of the game. I hope you enjoyed this video. Be sure to stay tuned for more history videos. Sincerely, the History Pilgrim.